Hey everyone, welcome to Digging In. This month, we're talking about leading up. We've been discussing extraordinary Eagle experiences and ways that we focus on leadership opportunities here at Eagle Center for Leadership. And today we have Robin Brzezinski, who's our Leadership Solution Director. Robin does a tremendous job supporting our team, supporting our business clients, and a beautiful job at leading up. So we're going to talk about that today. Thank you, Robin, for being with us.
Thank you, Melissa. Yes, in the role that I have here at Eagle, there are a lot of opportunities where I get to work with other directors and with you and Larry on a one-on-one basis. And there's a lot of opportunities to practice leading up. In this position too, there are also a lot of more detailed, very task-oriented pieces. And so being a camel personality, naturally I would test on a double-digit side of a camel. So it's a stronger for the Eagle personality pieces. When you test a double-digit, that's a stronger tendency for that. But I am actively pursuing growth opportunities to really tap into those above-the-line pieces. And that can be difficult for a camel too. That's a mind shift that has to happen for a camel, but it's doable. We can continue to grow that. We can continue to learn, and it's something that we can practice.
So let's talk about leading up, and let's talk about what does it mean to lead up, because you in your leadership role, you have an opportunity, those that listen to us, you have an opportunity to lead your peers. You have an opportunity to lead your team. You also have an opportunity to lead your supervisor. Robin, she has a unique skill set and very strategic behaviors that she practices in order to lead up. So Robin, from your perspective, what is leading up? Define that for us from your perspective.
Yes. And you frame that very well. Leading up can be overlooked a lot of times because when we think of leading, we think of leading across or leading others that are below us. And so leading up is really helping your leaders and support them and helping them move the ball forward. You know, they are the visionaries of the company. They're overlooking lots and lots of things here. And so leading up is being mindful of your leaders' time. It is helping them strategically, creating that think space for them so that they can get all of their ideas out there and you can capture these. And you kind of have to navigate between being in that receiver, that listening mode, and being in that solution finding mode.
So Robin is a camel, strong camel. And so Robin, you have taken the time to figure out how to kind of move out of your quadrant. You've taken the time to really think about, who your leaders are and their personality and what they need in order to be able to move things forward. So talk to us about, you've been able to shift. You've shifted out of that camel mode into another quadrant, and then you shift back when there's a need for some of that camel skill set, that camel detail. So talk to us about that mind shift, how do you shift?
Right. Shifting in itself is not a natural thing for a camel. Camels, they want to feel prepared. They love the structure, and so just that practice of having to shift and adapt is just it's a struggle. It can be a struggle, but it's still doable. A lot of the components that make a camel successful in being able to shift is going to come from that EQ piece. And so EQ, that's that emotional intelligence, that's that above the line tendency. So you've got the above the line relationship driven pieces. You've got the below the line task driven pieces. But camels really have an opportunity to be more efficient and competent. And those are the types of things that camels value if you have that EQ component too, and you strengthen that EQ. So there is a mind shift that EQ is not, it's not just a soft skill. This is something that camels can use in their tool bucket to be more efficient.
So here at Eagle Center for Leadership, so Robin She understands I'm a lion in a lion mode. Larry is a lion. And so, Robin, it's unique that you can allow us the space to think and talk out loud. You can allow us the space to process and not, latch on to the first thing that we have said. You have an ability to let us talk. And then as lions, by the time we have finished the conversation, we may be going a totally opposite direction than we started in the conversation. And you allow yourself the ability to help drive that. And you are not frustrated. You don't become frustrated by the way the conversation's going. You don't become agitated in any way by, hey, we're wasting time. We haven't come in prepared with, the clear direction. So talk to us about how do you navigate that, because sometimes for camels that can seem unprepared, that type of environment. It can seem not giving attention to the details. So talk to us about, how have you developed that skill to operate differently?
Yes. So in that scenario, there's really 3 key things that I think help us in those situations of leading up. And one of those is knowing your leaders. And so you talked about how you and Larry yourselves, you have your personalities, you have the ways that you have your communication styles, and knowing really how those communication styles work, and knowing really the mission, the vision and the mission personally and professionally within the organization. If I know the mission and the vision, then a lot of times that helps drive a lot of that uncertainty and that adaptation that happens in those conversations, because I know that when we start over here and we end up going with, more think tank spaces and a lot of ideas, I'm able to capture those pieces. And a lot of times there's, at the end of the time, like you mentioned, we're off on another piece. And so I'm able to, because I've captured that train of thought, that creative space, I'm able to bring us back to that original thought, make sure that we're aligned, make sure we're not off topic. And if I know the vision or the mission really well, like the back of my hand, I'm going to be able to recognize when things maybe don't align with that. So really getting to know your leader, understanding their needs, and even being aware of blind spots too. That's super important for your leader. Your leader is not always going to be thinking about things. So a camel leading up, that is critical. That's a lot of help there.
In that setting, in that environment, I have watched Robin really earn the right to interject and add such value. You talk about blind spots, to point out some perspective or solidify, hey, that's not the greatest idea. That's not going to really help the team, help our business client at the level that we want to. And being very driven by the mission, that I see that gives you a greater purpose to step out and take some risk in conversation. And you've earned that right by demonstrating that you can help provide that environment for myself, for Larry, and it's helpful. It's very helpful. So I want you thinking and to challenge your thought process of, can you be driven by your mission to the point that it really helps you create a different environment for your leader? It helps you support in a different way. It helps you step outside your quadrant and move to a different area to be able to provide space for your leader to think and process and have that dialogue and that interaction, because it's a very unique quality and it really supports the business at a strong level. What's another skill from your perspective?
Well, and you mentioned it too, and that second piece is knowing when to move forward. It's knowing when to allow your leader space to think, and also knowing when you need to ask questions. And so knowing when you get to those and you flesh them out, and being able to have those ideas. Not everything needs to be challenged. So, having that art of the flux is what I call it. Knowing when to step in, knowing when to ask questions. And really the third piece is knowing when to pull back, knowing when to back off. Understanding that you may not always have the full picture, and there's nothing personal about that. That's just the nature. And so using that art of the flux, and that not everything has to be challenged, and being open to those pivoting ideas. And that can be hard for a camel, the pivoting, but it all goes back to the EQ, and being in those places and using EQ for a camel. It can be uncomfortable, but the more that you practice those skills, the more uncomfortable it's going to be. Just practicing anything, it's going to be more uncomfortable the more you do it, the more you practice it.
So Robin, obviously you have worked at that skill. What are some specific things that you have done to really hone that skill? I think about when you first joined us, and I think about where you are now and how much you've grown. What are, just real quick, what are a couple of things that maybe you were intentional about, or maybe you just found yourself working out to learn those skills? What were those things?
Well, one of the first things that I can think of is the difference from when I started from now is I was a camel that kept my head down at my desk and really got in task mode, and I did not practice the EQ pieces, at least not at first. So that's one of those things that there's a big difference there. It sounds very cliche, but I get out of my shell. That turtle part of my personality, which is more of a stronger secondary for me. I have to get out of that turtle shell. I have to go and talk to people, and that is the piece that helps me be a more effective camel. If I talk to people and not just stay in task mode, then it's so beneficial, and it really helps me be more effective.
So you made some intentional decisions to step out, to have conversation, to engage at a different level, to be present at a different level instead of just focused on the task. The task at hand. So you've talked about shifting. You've talked about the mindset. Any other thoughts from you on how you lead up and what that looks like?
Yes. I know that leading up with you and Larry, it's created incredible opportunities for me to learn, because I am not there just to absorb and retain information. I'm there for the betterment of the company. And so I'm learning, I'm actively learning. Anytime I'm with my leaders, I'm like a sponge. I'm taking everything in, and I'm putting it in my toolbox. And it just helps me be a more effective, more competent camel.
So the choice here, I want you to hear that she's choosing to actively lead up. She has a purpose in that drives her to be uncomfortable, to push back a little bit, to be able to engage at a different level. She's obviously earned the trust to function that way, and she's demonstrated that she can, and that it brings such a value. So I want you guys thinking about, how can you increase your leadership and leading up? How can you engage at a stronger level? How do you know your leader and who their personality is? And how can you go get in their quadrant to the best of your ability, whether your personality is the same, similar, or different? How do you make those moves? How do you make those choices to do that? And then how do you shift your mind? How can you be aware of, how do I create a think tank environment? How do I give an opportunity to pull things out of my directors, out of my leaders, out of my managers, whoever it may be? How do I practice that and experiment with that in a way that produces more of that type of behavior? And how do I make sure that in doing that, I'm aware that I'm adding value? I'm aware, and I have the EQ to know that this is benefiting. It's benefiting the leader that I'm supporting. It's benefiting my team, my teammates, my organization. It's really helping to move things forward in a different way. So we want to challenge you. Really want to challenge you. Take some time in the next month and look at and be aware and try to lead up even at a stronger level. Robin, as we finish up, any takeaways for our participants, people that are listening, any other takeaways for them that you can give them?
Yes. Well, I just think of the valuable information that comes from the personalities, because it is about knowing and using those EQ pieces. It's not always about the task, and the personalities are critical in knowing and being effective with the EQ.
Well, thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you so much for how you choose to lead and how you choose to impact lives here at Eagle Center for Leadership.
Thank you.
All right, guys, go practice, dig in, and choose to lead up.
To learn more about the concepts from this video, you can find Dr. Larry Little's book, Crossing the Line, available to purchase on Amazon and our website, eaglecenterforleadership.com. You can also find the podcast, Crossing the Line with Larry Little, available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or online at eaglecenterforleadership.com. Thank you for watching.